Imagine the workday just ended. We're in a cold, one-room cabin. You could be crammed in with up to 12 other people in this tight space. You work for 16 hours today, no breaks. The only hope you have is that the abolitionists in the North keep their word and free you from slavery. In January of 1865, the first of 3 Reconstruction amendments, called the 13th Amendment, was passed by Congress. According to Joseph L. Locke, writer of open-source history book The American Yawp, the amendment legally abolished slavery, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have duly convicted. Did this amendment truly hold its promise? To understand how it got to this point, the United States history of slavery must be analyzed. Beginning all the way back in 1502, the first record of slaves being taken across the Atlantic occurred. This became known as the transatlantic slave trade, and more than 30 countries were involved. Roughly 12.5 million Africans were forcibly taken from their homes and deported to an unfamiliar land. By the 1600s, the American colonies integrated the transatlantic slave trade into their economy, being used in plantations and cotton mills. They became indispensable. For hundreds of years, America relied on the exploitation of a foreign race. By the 1850s, new ideas about human rights began to emerge, and groups such as the abolitionists began to rise up with the goal of freeing the slaves. Herein lied the issue that divided the northern and southern states. The North had begun to drift away from relying on slavery, while the South still heavily relied on them. And it certainly didn't help that their newly appointed president, Abraham Lincoln, appeared to be anti-Southern. Under threat and pressure of losing their driving economic force, South Carolina seceded from the Union, being followed by 10 other states. In 1861, the Civil War officially began. One of Lincoln's tactics was to use the very thing they were fighting over, slaves. He didn't believe in the ethicality of slavery, but didn't think he could just free them all at once either. So in 1863, he announced the Emancipation Proclamation, an executive order that, according to Locke, freed only enslaved people in areas of rebellion and left more than 700,000 in bondage in certain border states and Union-occupied territories. It functioned more as a war strategy than a mass liberation. Either way, it served its purpose, as by the end of the Civil War, 1,800,000 freed slaves fought for the Union Army. The Emancipation Proclamation was a huge step for the African American community. For centuries they had been somebody else's property, and now, the country that put them down for so long was giving them the opportunity to have the semblance of a normal life. None of this is better shown than the 13th Amendment, which legally freed around 4 million enslaved people. At the same time, some states made new systems to exploit them. One attempt at exploiting African Americans was through black codes. These vagrancy laws took advantage of the loophole in the 13th Amendment, saying that slavery could be a form of punishment. Black people were logically arrested for minor or non-existing offenses and forced to serve sentences that essentially replaced slavery. After black codes came Jim Crow laws, which were local laws that implemented segregation and diminished political and voting rights. It appeared that the United States had good intentions, but the country as a whole struggled to let go of that racist ideology that prevailed for the majority of its existence. Where did this ideology come from, and why were black people enslaved in the first place? According to Ibram X. Kendi, author of Stamped from the Beginning, 2 18th century ideas resulted in discrimination and the enslavement of black people. The first was curse theory, also known as the Curse of Ham, which is a theory that suggested that black skin was a curse placed by God on the descendants of Noah's son, Ham, after he saw him naked. This resulted in the idea that men are servants of God, therefore there must be a lower form of people to serve as servants of man, justifying the enslavement of black people. The second was polygenism. This theory posited that black people were less evolved than white people, an obviously unfounded theory that has no scientific basis. Both of these theories are examples of ethnocentrism, which according to Konrad Koltak, writer of textbook Cultural Anthropology Appreciating Cultural Diversity, is an extreme preference for one's own ethnic group and the denial of the same rights as their own group to others. Ethnocentrism existed in the United States for a very long time, but if the Civil War and the 13th Amendment showed us anything, is that these traditional ways of thinking can be overcome, allowing equal rights and treatment for every race.